This first day, I'm just going to go over like the landscape of tooling that I use regularly and that I like refer people to regularly, so you guys can start to get a sense of like what's out there, and start exploring the tools and playing with them. This will be more of like presentation style where I'm just going to like review. I'll share some of the pages, just like the Block Explorer, API pages, some of the tools that I use. In the future workshops where like I go over transactions, we'll actually go into some code using the ContractKit SDK to send transactions or other tools. And then for like deploying contracts, we can go over Truffle and Remix and how to use those tools to deploy contracts onto Celo. So with that, yeah, I'll just jump in. So Dapp development tools. Yeah, I'm Josh Kreitz. I'm working on developer relations at C Labs. So my mission is to basically help people build on Celo, build products that people love. And that's one side of it. The other side of my role is also just like talking to you as developers and understanding your pain points and just kind of your expectations when you're building on Celo. Like if you guys have been working in the crypto space before, like what are you guys used to? What are you seeing? Getting feedback from you guys and then communicating that back to the engineering team so we can continue to make a better developer experience for Celo developers, make it easier to build products that people love. So today I'm just going to go over a brief overview of important blockchain concepts. I know some of you already have experience in blockchain, but just with a certain angle on like why Celo and unique advantages that Celo has to offer. I'll go over a list of general developer tools that Celo developers often use. I'll go over some smart contract specific tools and then some resources to learn more. Then we'll have Q&A. Actually, I want to invite you guys to just ask questions throughout the presentation. I find if something's not clear while I'm presenting, if you can just jump in and ask questions, I can clarify some topics. If we start going down a rabbit hole, we can just continue conversation in Discord or in another channel. But yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if something's not clear as I go through. So hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. But feel free to ask questions throughout. So yeah, you guys are probably familiar, but Celo is all about empowering and meeting the needs of all people by creating an open and permissionless platform that makes financial tools accessible to anybody with a mobile phone. So one of the early promises of Bitcoin and blockchain generally was to bank the unbanked, and this vision has not really been realized for a variety of reasons, and user experience is a big one. So user experience has been central to the design of the Celo network and the tools that we are developing at C Labs. So this is central to gaining adoption, and I think this is a key differentiator of Celo from other blockchain platforms. Related is the developer experience. User experience includes everyone, not just end users. And at C Labs, we can't meet our stated mission of creating an open financial platform that works for everybody by ourselves. Like we need you guys and people building in Celo Camp to realize this vision. So we need a community of developers, designers, dreamers, and doers that pay close attention to how everyone experiences Celo, a global community. And whether people are transferring value, building community, or developing applications, like we need to recognize this like as important parts of the community. So the seed of the network has been planted and it's starting to grow. And I'm focusing on creating the conditions for a flourishing developer community to grow, which means making development on Celo an enjoyable and fruitful experience. So developers should be able to easily find resources and connect with experienced developers that can help through any trouble that you have. So that's the impetus behind this workshop series. Some of the core features of Celo are listed here. Stable value currencies. We have the Celo dollar as like a native currency in the Celo network. We're also working on launching the Celo euro soon. So this just came out of research that the team did early on in terms of creating a crypto network that's actually usable for people for transferring value. Using Bitcoin as an actual currency as a medium of exchange is difficult because the value it fluctuates so much. So yeah, stable value currencies are like a core component of developing a financial system that works for people. Related to usability, like having a mobile identity system where currently accounts can be linked to phone numbers. This allows wallet users to send and receive payments using just a phone number instead of using confusing cryptographic public keys or addresses that are not human readable. So this just provides opportunities for vastly improved user experience. You can see this in the Valora mobile wallet that we have. Also improving UX is the gas payable in multiple currencies. So on Celo, you can pay transaction fees in Celo or Celo dollars, soon to be Celo euro. And this is in contrast to like Ethereum, where you have to pay transaction fees in Ether. So if you're trading tokens, you essentially need two currencies in your wallet to do any transfers. This is not the case in Celo, so it makes it easier for people that are just interested in managing stable value currencies to do so without having to worry about multiple currencies. So yeah, all these features are designed to help developers create financially inclusive and accessible applications. And as a product developer, you don't necessarily need to understand the mechanisms of how these features work or how they're enabled. But like it's important to understand that this is like a key differentiator that sets Celo apart from other blockchains. And the SDKs that I'll talk about shortly make it easy to leverage these features in your applications. It's not necessary that you know how they work, but it is helpful in understanding like using them effectively and also thinking about new ways that these features can be used in applications that haven't been seen before. So here I just want to show like how like a high level overview of how Dapp architecture can differ between Web 2 versus Web 3. Web 2 just being a more traditional web application where there's a centralized database, maybe connected with APIs, and a user interface that's hosted on a web server versus a Web 3 application where instead of centralized databases, functions and state of the application can be handled in accounts and smart contracts on the blockchain or other distributed storage tools. And instead of like APIs, there's just like a standard interface for interacting with the blockchain, interacting with these account layers, whether that's just user accounts or interacting with smart contracts specifically. So those are just defined more at the protocol layer as opposed to traditional Web 2 applications. And as I mentioned, like state changes are managed on the blockchain, specifically related to value transfers and the more sensitive information that needs to be publicly verifiable by everybody. I'm just going to parse my notes and make sure I covered everything. Yeah, an important thing to note on this architecture is user interfaces can be designed with the same tooling that you're familiar with in Web 2 development. You can still use JavaScript and TypeScript frameworks and libraries like React, Vue, and Angular are all popular frameworks for developing front ends for Web 3 user interfaces. And at C Labs, we've built SDKs that make it easy to leverage React Native in developing mobile-first applications. Since we are taking this mobile-first approach to blockchain development and accessibility. So with that, I just want to go a little bit deeper into one of the primitives of blockchain and like how it's very different than Web 2 in terms of like how accounts and are like the accounts are one of the core primitives of blockchain. So basically all information stored on chain is associated with an account, whether that's an externally owned account like a user account or a smart contract account. Accounts can have balances, which is typically related to cryptocurrency. So like just the standard balance in the accounts for Celo will be a Celo balance. And then accounts that have code associated with them are smart contract accounts. And this code that's associated with the smart contract accounts dictates how the smart contract behaves. You may have heard that Celo is an EVM compatible blockchain. So Celo is running the Ethereum virtual machine, which means that it's running the same bytecode like at the blockchain layer that Ethereum is. So if you're writing smart contracts in Solidity or any smart contract language that compiles to Ethereum bytecode, you can deploy those contracts directly onto Celo. But this like account-based architecture is important to keep in mind when you're interacting with Celo or any blockchain really, because it's very core to how users are interacting with the chain, and whether that's their externally owned accounts or smart contract accounts. Yeah, another thing to note is with externally owned accounts, like probably most of the wallets you've used on blockchains are controlled by a private key, but smart contract accounts are not controlled by a private key. They're controlled by this code that's associated with them, which is determined when a smart contract is deployed onto the network. So this list of accounts is transparent and visible to everybody, which is a key component of blockchain security and reliability. So everyone can see and agrees on the list of accounts and their balances, and updating the balances or the code of any one of these accounts must follow the protocol rules. So that's where you get the guarantees around how balances are credited or debited, and how like the code will actually behave when someone interacts with a smart contract. So yeah, with that high-level overview, I want to actually just jump into some of the tools specific to Celo now to interact with the chain. So this is going to be kind of a whirlwind tour of the tools that are available, and it's meant to be more of a starting point for you to show you what is available, and feel free to dig deeper into any of these tools. And if you have questions, yeah, I'm always available on Discord. Yeah. So with that, I want to touch on like the main package in our SDK. It's called ContractKit, and ContractKit includes common functionality that like many applications will use to make it easier to get started building. So it's easy to interact with native Celo assets, Celo dollars, and soon to be Celo euro, by wrapping the contracts in just an interface that makes it easy to access with JavaScript, or it's actually written in TypeScript, so you can write in TypeScript or JavaScript. And the contract kit comes with core contract wrappers already initialized, so you don't have to initialize these contracts for every application. You can just call a method on the contract kit and get access to these smart contracts. It also provides easy access to the core lightweight identity layer. So if you want to look up accounts associated with phone numbers, and as we expand the identity layer to include more than just phone numbers, it will make it easy to access the extended functionality as well. It also makes it easy to pay transaction fees in alternative currencies. So if you want to pay fees in CUSD or Celo euro or Celo, you can just specify that right in ContractKit. So you don't need an additional tool like when using Ethereum. And ContractKit was originally based on Web3.js, which is a very popular library in Ethereum. So all of the functionality in ContractKit, all of the Web3.js functionality is available in ContractKit as well. Since Celo is running the EVM and has so much shared history with Ethereum in terms of the protocol development, a lot of the Web3.js library can just be used directly with Celo. Just note that ContractKit is a subset of a larger set of SDK packages. There's a link in this slide. I'll share the link to the presentation later. But there's additional SDK packages related to DappKit, which I'll talk to, which makes it easy for mobile development. But also, if you just want wallet-specific functionality, there's an SDK for that. If you want to manage connections to the blockchain, whether you're running a local node or connecting to a remote node, like Node as a service provider, ContractKit makes it easy to do with just one line of code. We'll go over this next week when we talk about transactions and how to build those. But also, there's a cool wrapper that Alex on the C Labs team built recently. It's called Use ContractKit, and it makes it really easy to manage connections to React apps using ContractKit. So it just injects a React component into your app and can use ContractKit to build, to make it easy to get started building user interfaces that connect to Celo. I also have a link to some code examples here at the bottom, where these code examples will just go through how to send transactions and deploy contracts using ContractKit, which is what I'll cover in the coming weeks in the workshops. Next is the Celo CLI. So the Celo CLI is a command line tool that allows users to interact with the Celo protocol smart contracts. I haven't seen many people use this in applications, but it's a really good tool to just start interacting with the Celo network and inspecting the state. I've used it mostly for participating in on-chain governance, but I often reference implementations in the CLI for looking up how to do specific actions. So if people are like, oh, I want to do this thing using ContractKit, I'll often look at the CLI to see how the C Labs engineering team has implemented the ContractKit in the CLI to do certain things, like specifically around validator elections or participating in on-chain governance, interacting with multi-sig contracts, or getting details about validators. So yeah, the CLI is a really good reference tool. Yeah, the next tool I want to cover is the Block Scout Block Explorer. The Block Explorer is really useful for reading data from the blockchain. I often use the AlphaHoriz Block Explorer to investigate like on-chain activity when I'm testing things. So if I'm deploying contracts or creating transactions, creating tokens and sending them between accounts, like I'll jump into the Block Explorer to see what's going on exactly. And I'll just jump over to that real quick to show you some of what I use the Block Explorer for. So you can see here, like, it's actually not updating blocks, but new blocks will be coming in here on the main page. And I'll often just like click into specific transactions. You can see a lot about how the blockchain is working at a low level with the Block Explorer, just in terms of like this top hash is a transaction hash, which is a unique identifier for the transaction. You can see that there's a transfer between two accounts, and I can just like click into these accounts to see more information about these accounts specifically. But going back to the transaction, I can see like the block it was included in, how many confirmations there's been, the fees, the gas currency. So this transaction was actually, the fees were paid in Celo dollars. There's a lot of information here to dig into, especially when you're testing your contracts. So I'm actually looking at the mainnet Explorer right now, but we have the same Explorer running on AlphaHoriz as well, which is a developer testnet that I'll get into more later. But looking at specific transactions, I often look at internal transactions, which is calls between smart contracts within a specific transaction, as well as this log tab is really helpful. It shows all of the events that are emitted from smart contracts as a transaction is being processed on chain. So yeah, it looks like this transaction is just transferring Celo dollars between accounts. But as I mentioned, we have the AlphaHoriz Testnet block explorer, which is the same interface, but it's on the testnet where you can get free tokens and do testing fast and easy. So yeah, that's a nice quick overview of that. I also want to touch on the API we have associated with Block Scout. So there's an API. If you just go to explore.celo.org/API, you'll be able, it's just a REST API where you can query blockchain data programmatically. Doing it graphically is nice for just like kind of looking yourself at what's going on. But if you actually want to get some information in your programs, this API is a good way to do some of that. And it's a fast way to get data about accounts, token transfers, specific contracts, and logs associated with smart contract events. So yeah, I definitely recommend looking at what is available in this API, because it may be useful for you guys as you're trying to read information from the chain. This API only supports read operations. You're not going to be able to actually send transactions or things that update the state of the blockchain through this API, but we'll go over how to do that shortly. So yeah, that's Block Scout. I mentioned the AlphaHoriz Testnet. So this is the testnet designed for application developers to test their applications. It's easy to connect to the AlphaHoriz Testnet through our hosted node service called Forno. You can do that through ContractKit. I'll talk a bit about Forno next. But AlphaHoriz has very similar behavior to mainnet. There's some difference in terms of how the governance and validator process works, because this is just a testnet that's run by CLabs. So CLabs is just running all of the validators and running the chain. But as far as like building an application, you can do a lot of your testing right on the AlphaHoriz testnet. It's 5-second block time, so it's pretty quick to play around with. As I mentioned, with the AlphaHoriz Block Explorer, and there's an AlphaHoriz faucet as well, so you can get Celo and Celo dollars on AlphaHoriz really easily. Soon we'll have a faucet for Celo Euro as well once that's activated. And then we have the Celo developer wallets linked here, which are mobile wallets as well as like web and desktop wallets that connect to the AlphaHoriz testnet. If you download the Valora app, like the official one from the Play Store, that's going to connect to Celo mainnet and handle real assets, real Celo assets. But on Celo.org /developers, I believe is the link, yeah, /wallet. You can download the AlphaHoriz specific version. So these applications will connect directly to the AlphaHoriz testnet. So I mentioned Forno in the last slide. Forno is a service that makes it easy to connect to the Celo network without having to run your own node. So if you guys have developed an ETH before, it's very similar to Infura, where we just have a HTTPS endpoint where you can connect ContractKit to this endpoint, and then you can read blockchain data from that endpoint directly, or you can send signed transactions through that endpoint, and Forno will broadcast transactions to the network. So we've seen this, this is a really common pattern in Dapp development where users won't be running their own node. They'll just connect to the network through a service like Forno. It's super easy to connect to Forno. It's just one line of code using ContractKit. Since it is a remote node that's publicly accessible, you have to sign transactions before you send them to Forno. So you just sign transactions with ContractKit or another tool locally, and then send that signed transaction to Forno, and Forno will broadcast it. Forno does support WebSocket connections as well. So you can set up contract event listeners right on Forno using ContractKit or Web3.js. Forno runs Forno doesn't run archive nodes, so it only has like the last, I think it's like about 10 minutes of block data available for query through ContractKit. So you can't get historical data through a connection to Forno, but Figment Data Hub provides a very similar service to Forno, and they're actually running archive nodes. So you can get a lot more historical data through a service like Figment Data Hub. So I recommend Forno or Figment Data Hub. They're both great. And Data Hub so Forno is free. Data Hub is also free. They have a freemium service where you get like 100,000 queries per month or something for free. And then as your application grows, you'll have to start paying for it. But you do get some really cool features with the more paid services where you can actually see how many queries you're getting on your Figment account. So it's a good proxy for like user counts and like basically user activity on your DApp, because otherwise it can be difficult to track these things. You want to dive a bit deeper into the Celo wallets that are available. We have native mobile wallets, so on Android and iOS. Those links are on the website, the link that I shared earlier. We also have web wallets. So there's the Celo wallet app for AlphaHoriz specifically. Celo Terminal is a really cool application. It's good for, it's a bit more focused on power users, I'd say. Like I wouldn't expect people to, like the average user to download Celo Terminal, but it is a powerful tool. There's plugins for it where you can participate in governance, you can manage multi-sig contracts, you can do some like contract administration activities through the Celo Terminal. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And then we also have the Celo Chrome browser extension wallet, which is a fork of MetaMask. It's in development, so we're working with DSRV to make this a production level application. But I've been using it for the past couple of months, and I use it for a lot of stuff, and it works. It works really well. So, and there are wallets that support Ledger as well. So the Celo wallet, the Celo Terminal. I haven't tried the browser extension wallet with Ledger, but many of these wallets do support Ledger, and the Celo CLI also supports Ledger if you want to build an application where users are going to be using a Ledger wallet. So a bit earlier, I mentioned DappKit, which is an SDK that helps build mobile-first apps. DappKit's just a lightweight set of functions that allow mobile dApps to work with the Celo wallet. So with the AlphaHoriz wallet or the mainnet Valora application, this allows users to sign transactions and access like account information in any dApp. So you as a dApp developer can incorporate DappKit and then have users sign transactions with their Valora account, so you don't have to worry about managing their private keys. You can just leave private key management to Valora, and you guys just worry about building things on top of it. Because private key management is difficult to do correctly, and it's like highly sensitive information. If keys are mismanaged, people can lose all of their funds associated with those. So it's important to do that properly. So we try to make it easier with DappKit. So DappKit will be comfortable for mobile developers that are familiar with React Native. And it's currently designed to work with the Expo mobile development framework, which kind of brings a more traditional web development experience to building with DappKit and just building mobile applications. It does take some resourcefulness to get set up if it's new for you, because it is it's kind of like a lot of tools bundled into one. So definitely recommend checking it out. I have a short video here of what DappKit looks like from the user side. So on the right, I just have my app.js React Native application. On the left, I have my phone that's connected to AlphaHoriz. This is just the demo application. If you guys have seen the the Celo DappKit Truffle box. This is just what comes right out of the box with that if you follow those instructions. But I'm just going to talk through exactly how it works, and you can see kind of what the user flow is like. So I have an application where there's a login button at the top, and that will connect to Velora. I have a button that will read a contract name, so it's just reading the storage of the contract. And then I have a button to update the contract name, which will actually send a signed transaction to the network. So first, I'm going to click login. I'm choosing the AlphaHoriz wallet, and I'm just saying connect. And now I have the user's account address. It's probably pretty small, but it just popped up with information around the user's account address, their phone number, as well as their Celo dollar balance. So that's printed on the screen. Now that's connected, I can read the contract. It's just called hello with 2 wave emojis. Now I'm going to actually update the contract name. So I'm just typing in hello SFBW. I did this for San Francisco Blockchain Week. So now Velora's popped up and it's saying this app called Hello Celo would like to connect to Celo wallet to sign the transaction data. I'm going to allow this to sign, put in my PIN, and then the transaction has been sent to the network. So I'm just going to click read contract name, and when the transaction's been picked up, you can see the name has been updated, and it printed the transaction receipt in the console there. So the idea behind DappKit is just like making this a pretty easy, like intuitive user experience for people that are less familiar with crypto. It just makes it easy to navigate between these 2 applications and do these sometimes difficult processes for signing and like managing transactions. So next I want to touch on OTIS, which is related to the phone number identity system we have that like Velora is using. So OTIS actually stands for Oblivious Decentralized Identity Service, and it's not specific to phone numbers. You can actually use any sort of identifier, verifiable identifier with this identity service. So you could imagine registering email addresses with something like this as well. But this is core infrastructure for the attestation service, which is the phone number identity mapping that we have on Celo. So currently, I can text Celo dollars to basically anybody who I have their phone number for, even if they're not registered on the Celo network yet. So I can text Celo dollars to my brother. That will be held in an escrow account. And when he registers his phone number on the Celo network, his account will have a Celo dollar balance associated with it. And OTIS is part of the core infrastructure that makes this possible. So I have a link here that goes into more detail about how to actually query these on-chain identifiers with OTIS. This is possible with the SDK, and you can do these queries in your application without relying on Velora. But we've seen a lot of applications like actually just leverage DappKit and use Velora to look up this account information since it is in Velora. That's going to be how you're managing private keys. It's a really good way to do that, but it's not required. We haven't seen other applications actually like build out capabilities or like extend capabilities around OTIS beyond Velora yet. So just wanted to call that out. So next I want to just dive into some of the tooling around smart contracts, since I presume some of you will be writing your own custom smart contracts for building the capabilities that you guys are looking to build on Celo. So at a high level, smart contracts are kind of just money vending machines that follow a set of programmed instructions. So you guys as smart contract programmers will just write these instructions and dictate how people are interacting with the contracts, and then also like what will happen as a result of these interactions. So Celo has a set of protocol contracts, and I'll go into those a bit more in a couple slides. But you guys will be focusing more on the application-specific contracts, I would imagine. We are going to be potentially writing custom smart contracts for your application to enable the functionality that you guys are looking for. Since we do have protocol levels contracts, you guys can also choose to interface with those if you want to take advantage of the functionality that's provided in those contracts. So part of that may be the attestation service contracts or the account contracts that have account metadata. You can, but you don't have to. But it's just good to be aware that that those exist. And as I mentioned earlier, since Celo is running the Ethereum virtual machine, you can essentially reuse contracts that have been written for Ethereum. I frequently reference OpenZeppelin, which is they're like a security and auditing company on Ethereum, but they have published a bunch of audited smart contracts for community use on Ethereum, and you can just use a lot of their implementations for things. Like I was just deploying some of their ERC20 tokens onto Celo yesterday. But you can just take their contracts directly, they're open source, and deploy them onto Celo or use them in your own applications. So they have smart contracts written around tokens, governance, access control, to give certain accounts privileged access to contracts. They also have utility contracts as well, written in Solidity. So that's a really good resource to take advantage of. This slide just shows a bit more about how like the kind of like the Celo stack in terms of we have the blockchain layer where there's the smart contract platform that's running the EVM. There's native assets there. This is where the accounts and associated code are stored. Above that, we have the core contracts related to governance, elections, the validator set, randomness. All of the core protocol contracts kind of sit above that. And then we kind of think of it as applications sit on top of that. So applications may take advantage of some of the core contract features, or they may be completely independent of the core contracts. But yeah, they're above the protocol in the sense they can be independent. Here's a bit more detail in terms of the contracts architecture related to the protocol contracts. At the top in the middle, you can see like the governance protocol, like there's a governance contract and a freezer contract. On the right side, there's blockchain, where we have like a fee whitelist contracts that govern the gas price. The fee whitelist dictates what currencies can pay transaction fees. Bottom right, around proof of stake, we have the validator set, the rewards for the validator set, locked Celo, which is how people are voting for validators as well as elections. On the left, we have the stability protocol that manages CUSD and the reserve. And then on the application side, we have like escrow contracts, which is what Valora is using for like if I'm sending Celo dollars to a new user that doesn't have an account yet, it will be an escrow contract until they sign up until they register their phone number. Attestations is also related to phone number, the phone number mapping, and then we have a random contract for just like getting random values. Random number generation on a blockchain is actually a pretty hard problem. So we have a random number contract that can just provide people random numbers for whatever their application, whatever they're building. This is maybe useful for like lotteries and stuff. So yeah, just kind of quick overview of some of the protocol contracts. Specific tools related to like smart contract development. Solidity is the most common programming language for writing Ethereum like EVM contracts. So that's my default recommendation. The Solidity documentation is actually an amazing resource just for understanding like how Ethereum and blockchains work generally, but also like specific details about Solidity as a programming language. So I think all Celo like protocol contracts are written in Solidity. But yeah, it's the most common language, and most of the tooling is developed for Solidity. The Truffle development framework is pretty common. I'll actually have slides on this, so I'll go into the details later, but we have Solidity is a programming language, Truffle is the framework, Remix is a popular web IDE for quickly deploying and testing smart contracts, and then a lot of you guys will be doing this testing on the AlphaHoriz Testnet. So yeah, just overview of Solidity. It's a high level, it's an object-oriented language, high level for implementing smart contracts for the EVM. And it's actually pretty easy to learn if you're familiar with C++, Python, or JavaScript. It's easy to learn, but it's like really hard to master. Doing Solidity properly is super important because we're working in a highly consequential environment where hacks and bugs can cost people their funds, all the funds that are being managed by these smart contracts. And this is especially important to consider when like we think about our target audience, like we're talking about building a system for financial inclusion for everybody. If people are using smart contracts with potentially their life savings, if they don't have a bank account and Valora is their bank and they're participating in some of these DeFi protocols, like people could potentially lose their life savings if contracts are written improperly. So it is easy to learn, but it's hard to master. And there's lots of best practices around security and doing this properly. Using audited contracts wherever possible is really important. I don't know, Deepak, if you want to say anything, kind of looks like here. Okay, cool. So yeah, I just always recommend leveraging existing work done on Ethereum open source projects, because a lot of teams developing on Ethereum have done audits and they do have kind of battle tested code. So relying on experts where you can is a really good practice here. Truffle is a development framework. It's an environment and testing framework asset pipeline for blockchains using the Ethereum virtual machine. So any EVM chain can leverage Truffle. So you can write smart contracts in your favorite IDE. You just install Truffle in your project using NPM. It's a command line tool. And then you can run scripts to deploy your contracts to testnet or mainnet. Unit testing is a really powerful feature of Truffle that definitely recommend taking advantage of. And it's really nice when you're managing a project long-term because it helps you keep track of all your contract deployments and upgrades. So it keeps a history of all the migrations that you've run and all the contracts that you've deployed. So yeah, we'll get more into this in future workshops when we talk about deploying contracts. And last is Remix. So Remix is a browser-based IDE that you may be familiar with if you've been developing on Ethereum for a little while. So, oops. It just requires the Celo extension wallet and then the Celo Remix plugin. And I'll actually jump over to Remix because I was playing with it yesterday. And there's some really cool features where you can actually import Solidity contracts directly from GitHub. I was pasting Open Zeppelin contracts right into here with this link. So you can just like paste a link from GitHub here. There's this nice file tree where you can actually look at your contracts. So I was playing with the ERC20 contracts and seeing how easy it would be to deploy an ERC20 contract. And then I added this Celo plugin, and I can just like compile the contract right here. And then I can just deploy an ERC20 contract like this. Let's wait 5 seconds and see it deploy. It should pop up. So yeah, now I have it. I just deployed a new ERC20 token contract onto the AlphaHoriz testnet. Like it's really easy to do. So the tooling's starting to come together to form like a familiar experience for Ethereum developers. Like it's starting to be really fast and seamless. So I'm really excited about this. Yeah, another cool feature about Remix is you can actually connect and interact with already deployed contracts. So you can, like, if you've deployed a contract in the past, you can connect to an already deployed contract and start reading the contract state or sending state updates to it with your browser extension wallet. So yeah, that's a whirlwind overview of a bunch of tools that you may find useful for building and developing on Celo. Should give you guys a bunch of stuff to get started with, to play with. Here's a list of resources if you want to go to the links. Let me actually, I'm just gonna stop presenting and share this link. And yeah, I will open this up for questions now. I'm just gonna read the chat real quick.